what I'm trying to do is help people to actually make a change in their life. Okay. So a lot of North Americans, because once again, the majority of my people are North Americans, so you have to understand that, are accustomed to Latino culture. Okay. They know the music, they know
Yeah.
the food, they had friends, they went to college, they took Spanish in high school, things like that. They might be business owners. So going, staying within an hour or two time zone, that's really good.
Yeah.
Going north south makes a lot of sense. Am I going to get them on an airplane and move them to Thailand or Malaysia? No, they're not going to do that. Am I going to move my dentist to Thailand? That's not going to happen.
Mikkel, I'm glad you let me drag you away from dinner here to do a show. I'm curious to just understand what you're doing here in El Salvador.
What I'm doing here in El Salvador or what I'm doing here at your house? Because we just had really good steaks off the barbecue.
A little bit overcooked, let's be honest. They were too raw, and I threw them back on for that second, 1 minute, and those 30 seconds too long. But I hope they were still okay.
No, I had a good time. Enjoyed very much. So El Salvador. I am in El Salvador to learn. I mean, that's what it's about. I want to understand what's going on here. El Salvador is making the news everywhere. Everybody's watching what's happening, and I don't like to just watch the news or read something. I actually want to come here and take a look around and make my own opinions about things. So that's what I'm down here for a few days, is to just kind of learn and take a look around and talk to some people. And we had a great day. We met with one of the deputy ministers. We went to a couple of law firms, got a lot of questions answered about El Salvador, and there's some exciting stuff happening here for sure.
So, and this is not just personally exciting for you. You have a expat money website and business. You help people kind of that want to move overseas. I'm probably butchering it. So you go ahead and give people your background.
No, I think you did a good job. I mean, I work as a consultant. I'm a consultant for high net worth families. I help them relocate overseas. We have a good sized team, full time lawyers who work for us. We deal with immigration, tax issues, investment, not stock market, things like that, but more, the home that they're going to live in or the property that they're going to buy, things like this. So I work with families. That's it.
So you have a pretty good understanding of what people are looking to leave from one place to locate. What are the driving factors? And
Yes, I would say I don't have a good idea for everybody in the world. I don't try to take care of everybody in the world. I have a certain type of worldview, a very freedom-minded worldview, and a lot of people, my audience happen to agree with the things that I think are important, and I've spent a lot of time asking a lot of questions and discussing things with people. So I think that if you're a freedom-minded person and you're an honest and ethical person and you're looking just to have a little bit more stability in your life, then yeah, I would say I have a very good idea of what it takes to make a place like that come to life.
so did a little bit of research beforehand, and it looked like you're a pretty prolific writer. You write quite a bit. You obviously have a podcast that delves into the issues. But I picked up on one article that basically the gist of it was that you are watching El Salvador, but you're not quite convinced that this is a place that you would recommend to your clients yet. That you feel like you're waiting to see a little more follow through on things. So I'm just kind of curious as
Sure.
to.
Well, you have to understand the majority of the people who hire me, we're talking lawyers, dentists, doctors, small business owners, a lot of brick and mortar small business owners. Not a plumber, but a guy who owns you know, a, an office and deals with a lot of houses or an area. Has a lot of people working for him. Or I have a guy who builds stairs for a living. I have a private client who does fencing. They do $22 million a year in fencing. It's like, real businesses, these types of people. Am I taking my dentists and doctors and lawyers to move down to El Salvador because they brought in Bitcoin? No, I mean, I'm not. not yet, at least. You know, the stability and the safety that's come into the country is fantastic. I mean, I'm super excited about these types of things. But you have to understand, I came to El Salvador 21 years ago for the very first time and spent 18 months and hitchhiked and backpacked through Central and
Oh,
South
I didn't
America.
realize you were there for that long. You mentioned you were that, so that was right about the same time that I came down here.
Yeah,
So,
you came down here and you stayed down here. I continued on. I spent
okay.
18 months through Central and South America, but then lived in the South Pacific for 4 years. I lived in Singapore. I lived in the Middle East for almost a decade. I lived all over the world. I'm based out of Panama now. I've been in Panama for 5 years now, but going on my 25th year of continual travel around the world and looking at different countries and trying to understand and, as I said earlier, ask a lot of questions. And, you know, El Salvador 21 years ago, I think you would agree, there was a lot of problems
Yeah.
here, like legit. Like this is not just, make believe or something like that or mainstream media.
Problems and just lack of infrastructure. I mean, it was a very, you had to make a lot of sacrifices to be living here for sure.
Yeah. Well, even growing up, we rented out one of the spare rooms in my house to a university student, and he ended up marrying a woman from El Salvador. And I grew up with her basically as my big sister. Like, I love her to death. And I was talking to her on video chat while I was at my beach house in Panama on Sunday this week. And I was telling her, I'm going back to El Salvador. And she was like almost in tears because she hasn't been able to come back because she fled because of the war.
Yeah.
And she wants to come back and see what's going on. My best friend from growing up in Canada, or from my hometown in Canada, he left, I think, when he was 9 years old or something like that. Grew up in southwestern Ontario, where I'm from, and then spent the last 15, 20 years living in Korea. He got in touch with back in touch with El Salvador, was able to get his El Salvadorian citizenship and passport, and now he's buying property. So there's this, diaspora that's coming back to El Salvador, which is completely wild to see.
They used to be the ones that thought you were the most crazy. When I would tell people that I live in El Salvador, Salvadorans were like, why? Like,
Yeah.
why would you live there? You're an idiot. That's stupid. I would never go back. Now you're seeing them finally for the first time, like
100%.
starting to come back, buy properties, buy businesses, re-engage with family here. So it's been very exciting to see that shift just in their perspective.
Yeah, no, 100%. So the things that are going on in El Salvador right now are amazing. They're fantastic. But I think I'm still kind of on the wait and see. Like, he's done 5 years. Great. Now let's do a few more and let's see if the things stick. It's this quite similar to what's going on in Argentina with Milei. I have clients who are like, oh my God, you got a libertarian in Argentina. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, yeah, that is amazing. So are you moving people to Argentina? No, I'm not moving people to Argentina. Not yet. Like, let's just give it a little bit of time. And, we're talking about generations of problems that have happened in these countries. So it's just like, okay, it's going to take more than one term to kind of fix all of these types of things. But right trajectory, going the right direction, super bullish, want to see them succeed, do everything I can to help them succeed. But I also have a responsibility to my clients to, if I'm going to relocate them, this is probably where a lot of them are going to spend the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And I'm assuming while you may have some clients that are Bitcoiners, probably a lot of them are not. And so I think for a lot of people that are, the first wave of people that are coming in are primarily Bitcoiners. Like, that is the most important thing to them. And so,
yeah, early adopters, for sure.
So that makes a lot of sense. What have you seen in the few days that you've been here that you're excited about? What things still give you pause and you feel like, hey, these are the things the country needs to address to really bring this next wave of investors and wealthy expats into the country that can bring capital, intellectual and financial into the country?
It's a good question. The one that really gave me a lot of pause was the immigration in this country. I couldn't believe when I was sitting down with the lawyers on how terrible the immigration is in this country. If you are an investor and you want to come into El Salvador, there's no real option for you. Okay, they have a rentista visa, which is basically a passive income visa, and there's a retirement visa. Okay, great, but both of them you have to be physically present in El Salvador for a good portion of the year.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm asking for is not something that doesn't exist anywhere else. Just look at Panama, where I live. I can get you a permanent residency in Panama in about a month. It's an investor's visa, so you purchase $300,000, like as of today, as we're speaking, is $300,000 in real estate or more. October 15th, the government has slated that they will change it. We'll see if it really happens or not. But within 1 month, you have permanent residency. And then to keep your visa active, you have to visit the country 1 day every 2 years. That's it. For the rest of your life, you can have it. But here it's a temporary residency. And then after 5 years, you do another temporary and then something else. And then maybe one day you can become El Salvadorian. And I'm like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like look at Costa Rica, look at Belize, look at any of the other 7 countries in Central America. And I think El Salvador probably has the worst immigration process here. And there's no need for it. Like, bring in foreign direct investment, let the people come and go. Wealthy families travel. I have multiple homes. I don't spend only time in Panama, but being able to, not leave the country for more than 90 days at a time, that's difficult, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that is technically the law. I think in practice, it's you see some flexibility with that there. The people
Sure,
that
but
are,
I deal in the law.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't mess around in the gray zone. I don't mess around in the black zone.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I'm sitting down with the lawyers. I'm asking all of these questions, and these are the things that they're telling me. Now, I had done research in advance, but I thought there's got to be a way, that you can navigate this. And they're like, no,
No, I
navigate.
went through that because we spent, for a number of years, we would spend about 8 months a year here. We had a seasonal business in the U.S., and so we'd go back
Sure.
for that. And so I was in this thing where I was coming back through immigration. They're like, you spend too much time here. You should be a resident. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys are telling me I can't be a resident because I'm out for this 4-month stint. And they're like, oh, okay. So it was like this weird thing. And so I actually didn't get residency here till probably 5 years in of being here. And that was just when my kids started going to school here, and we had to spend more time here just
Sure.
because of the school year. But before that, we didn't really fit the criteria. So I understand what you're saying. I think maybe a pushback on their side would be, hey, we want people coming in who do plan on making this home. We don't want this to just be a place that they visit once a year and can, use as a backup plan. But some people that are really invested in the country, and what would be your take on that?
Well, I can understand that. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people, when they're moving overseas, they're not doing it all at once. Like some are. I have some clients who are like selling primary residence, packing up everything. We're gone, done. But a lot of them are like, this is a 5-year plan, Okay, I'm going to buy some land. Okay, then I'm going to develop it. Okay, I'm going to get my residency. Now I'm going to get my permanent residency. Spend, the summers there. And then I'm going to go down for the holidays. And they get used to it. You need to give them a bit of time. It's a pretty big thing moving to another country. You've done it, but, for a lot of people, they've never done these types of things before. So, like, let them ease into it a little bit and get, comfortable with it and accustomed to it. I don't deal with the digital nomads. I'm not dealing with people who are hopping around. As I said, I mostly work with families, and these are established business owners who really didn't think that they'd be leaving Canada or the States. I have some Australian, New Zealand clients, German, UK, but call it 90% of my business is Americans and Canadians. They never thought they would be leaving their
Seems
home
like,
country.
especially from anecdotal, things I've seen, it's especially the Canadians. Like,
oh my God.
They're just like freaked out and like, we need out. And some of these people have never been out of Canada in their life, and we've seen they moved here just because they're like, we need to get out before we can't.
Yep, no, 100%. It's pretty crazy what's happening back home in a lot of these countries. And you come down to Latin America and you can have a nice family first, Christian values type of country, and that's super attractive to a lot of people. It absolutely is.
So what do you think? So you think El Salvador should replicate what was available in some of these other places,
I think
or at least find some hybrid way to.
100%. I think look around for best practices for other countries who are doing it super well, and then copy them. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't do something new or interesting. Just find the best practices out there. That's what's going on, and just borrow their ideas. This is public domain. Like, I mean, you don't need to pay them anything for it. Like, just, hey, they're doing an investor's visa. We should do an investor's visa too. You can go and find the laws. You can look them up.
Other than the visa thing, what other things do you see need to happen?
So we were looking at corporate structures. asking a lot of questions about corporate structures, about the Sociedad Anónima, which is supposed to be an anonymous corporation, or an anonymous society. Not at all. A lot of the information is public here. That was very bizarre coming from Panama. I work with these corporations all the time. Side note, by the way, when I say anonymous, I'm not talking about anonymous from the US government. There's no such thing. I mean, pay your taxes, full disclaimer on all of this. But, information that's shared with the public in the public registry.
Yeah.
It seems a lot more, not private here in El Salvador as you would have in many other jurisdictions.
Well, I feel like just culturally in general, privacy is not valued that much, and it's not something that has been a priority. And I see that clash happening right now as you see this influx of Bitcoiners coming in,
Sure.
who are very privacy
Sure.
focused, and the society then in general is not. And so I think it's been healthy for the country as they look through things. I feel like the influx of Bitcoiners has put some pressure on them to rethink some things, and I hope it goes a lot further, but I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. And then learning about the taxation. And okay, the one amazing thing here is no property taxes in El Salvador. Like, that's a huge win. I want to see more places that don't have property taxes. But a lot of the income tax laws seem very convoluted. The way that they're taxing and withholding taxes on dividends, and it's 5%. But if it's going to an offshore jurisdiction, then it's as high as 25%. And then you got a corporate tax rate of 30%, and then you got an income tax, and it was just like, oh, like let's simplify this considerably. Look at best practices for other countries. As we see countries deregulate and make things easier for foreign direct investment, more money comes in. You want stability, you want safety, and you want to understand what the future is going to look like for your business. But right now, with these convoluted laws, I think it's going to be very difficult. So, going back to what you were asking before, El Salvador has done these amazing things. Okay, they cleaned up the corruption and the crime, and they've legalized Bitcoin. Amazing, love all of it. But it's like they jumped over all of these basic things that they should have done to make the country more attractive. And I feel like he needs to go back and backfill this, and get all of these types of things taken care of. And then it's going to really watch this place moon. It's going to go crazy.
No, I think anybody who's being honest would definitely agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of promise and a lot of exciting ideas, but a lot of the nuts and bolts seems like it still needs to happen to make this work. And so, yeah, I think a lot of the folks that I see coming in are more like, hey, this is the one country that has adopted Bitcoin, and so we're going to stake it all on that. But I could understand having a client base that's probably a bit more conservative, and Bitcoin is, for some of them, is much less important.
But even I think a lot of, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of Bitcoiners still don't understand what their legal responsibility is if they're Americans, and they're coming down here and they're like, Bitcoin's legal tender. I'm going to cash out. I'm going to be able to do all these things, buy property, do everything like that. El Salvador might consider it legal tender. That doesn't mean the IRS does. Like, if you bought at $3 and you're selling it at 52,000 or 60,000 or something like that, you still have a legal obligation back to the IRS. Like, full stop.
100%.
100%
for Americans. But
for Americans.
A lot of it's actually, I would say the percentage of Bitcoiners that are coming in that are Americans is a lot less than people think. It's a ton of Canadians, a lot of.
I've just been on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I've been interviewed on Bitcoin podcasts, and they're like so bullish on El Salvador. And I'm like, well, you know that you have those same type of laws in Panama. Like, Panama doesn't tax capital gains on Bitcoin. That law is already there. Yeah, but I can go and buy McDonald's. Okay, but I thought you were a hodler. I thought you wanted to save your Bitcoin. Now you want to go spend it on a Big Mac? Doesn't make any sense. And El Salvador's might not tax you, but that doesn't mean the IRS isn't going to tax you. So you still have the same problems if you're an American.
So I've never heard anybody be able to give a definitive on what the tax law would say. But since Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador, is it viewed? Do you think it'd be viewed differently by the IRS than people spending that had bought pesos at a certain amount, and when by the time they spent them, their pesos were more valuable than when they purchased them?
I think that the IRS and the Treasury, and they have stated it's long-term capital gains, like short and long-term capital gains.
But if it's legal tender,
but they don't care. The United States is the largest and most powerful country in the world,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the most aggressive organization on planet Earth. The
I,
IRS is so aggressive. You
but
think they
I
care
don't
about
think
El Salvador?
I don't think the IRS would want to take that case to court because if they lost, it would set precedent. So
I don't think they'd lose
I,
though. Like, if you're an American and you're down here as a resident or a tourist or something like that,
but there are official laws on how to treat foreign currency,
sure,
and most people aren't even aware that if they're living in Europe and they're an American and they had converted to euros when the euro was down, that anything over $300 they're supposed to claim that capital gains on when if they're buying a house with that is a million euros and they bought that when they converted it was $800,000, but at that time it's worth 1.2 million. They really owe taxes on that difference. Nobody claims those things. They
sure.
don't even know. Most people don't know exist. So I would argue that the same would apply for Bitcoin. If it's a legal tender in a place, that falling within the 300 de minimis law, that I believe that's what it is for foreign currency appreciation, that Bitcoin would fall into that.
Try it with the
Yeah.
IRS.
No, I don't want to try it. I don't want my life tied up in that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
like I'm not an American.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not an American.
Yeah.
But in my opinion,
No, for sure they would tell you that, but I don't know if they would actually want to take it to court because the IRS has the same fear. They have a fear of losing in court, and they could get a judge that makes a ruling that they don't like, and obviously they're going to try to take it up the food chain, but it could wind up in the Supreme Court, and we've seen things like this happen where
I hope they do. I hope they do. I mean,
yeah.
that'd be great. I want to, like I said, I'm rooting for El Salvador. I'm on El Salvador's
So
team.
somebody out there should do that with the IRS, not me, but
But that's
somebody else.
not tax advice.
Yes, definitely not tax advice, not life advice either. If you want to enjoy your life,
Yeah, exactly. No, don't try to take on the most aggressive organization on planet Earth. So, no, as I said, I am super rooting for El Salvador. I'm very happy the changes that have been made here, and I think it's a great start.
Yeah. What I know you met with some banks too, so I'm just curious. I think the banks here are absolutely horrific. Like I took me 10 years to finally get a bank account here. I used them one time and it was such a bad experience that I have not gone back. The funny thing was when I finally did open the account, I mean it was like a 3-day thing to get this finally done.
Yeah.
Sign, I mean it was a stack of documents like this. Sign. They come back to me. We don't like your signature. It's like, what do you mean? Well, it doesn't match on your residency card. I'm like, yeah, my residency, I had to sign this like electronic thing that didn't really work. And so it only registered half my, they're like, no, you need to replicate. So they printed this, tore it all up or shredded it, printed this whole book out again. And then I basically had to trace my signature. And I was like, you guys are missing the whole point of these type of contracts. But it was, that just was, in a nutshell, what the banks here are. They're just one bureaucratic nightmare to deal with.
Well, another thing we learned about with the bureaucracy here was the lawyer was speaking to us, explaining that any business that has a bank account is supposed to, by law, have a compliance officer. We're like, no, this can't be. Like, okay, regulated financial institutions, fine. They're like, no, like if you take credit card payments or you do banking, online banking or anything like that, and you're taking money from customers, you have to have a compliance officer. We must have asked her 47 different ways of like different situations, my colleagues and I, and she's like, you have to have one. Like, there's no way this is actually happening in real life. Like, there's just no way that anyone's actually doing this.
So they're saying if it's like a little restaurant,
Yeah.
that they have to have a compliance officer.
This is what they were telling me. This is what the lawyer was telling me. I was like, wow, this makes no sense.
I would definitely love to dive into that with some other lawyers and find out, because that, I mean, obviously in practice that doesn't happen. You wouldn't have any of these business wouldn't exist. They couldn't afford it.
But this is what the lawyer is telling everybody. This is foreigners are coming in, sitting down, asking questions, and this is the information that we're getting. And I'm going, this can't be true. If it's true, it makes no sense and it needs to be not true. You need to change the laws. Or like you've made a mistake and you need to stop telling people like this, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's very weird. And who's going to be able to afford a compliance officer for a small restaurant or a tienda or a barber or something like this. Like, it logically makes no sense. So it's these types of laws that are on the books that we need to simplify here. We need to get rid of this kind of stuff.
No, and that's something where I see there's still a lot of work to be done. Even talking to people that have opened up Bitcoin companies here, and they're like, hey, the amount of money that we'll have to spend in order to comply with what they want, we'll actually lose money on every customer that we get. And so it doesn't make any sense for us to locate here versus going to one of these other jurisdictions and still serving the Salvadoran population because it's a a phone app or
Sure.
something else that's still available, but serving them from outside the jurisdiction. Obviously, that is kind of self-defeating for the Salvadoran government if companies are actually leaving to better serve the customers here. So I do think that they inherited this kind of very broken system, and it was broken in so many ways. And so they've been focused on the crime and the security and all these things. And hopefully in the next 5 years, we're going to see them fill in all of the details to really make this the best place to do business.
No, I agree with you. But the original question was, why are you not bringing people
Yeah.
to El Salvador?
No,
But it's
it
like,
makes
this
sense.
is,
Yeah.
like, these are the legit reasons why. And I want to. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm here, Mike. I'm here at your home eating steak dinner with you because I want to learn and I want to be able to do this. I want to answer my clients honestly and ethically and say, yes, this is super exciting. Let's go down there. Let's help you buy a property. Let's help you get some banking there, set up a company, move the business. Let's do these types of things. But I can't do that right now, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years. And I absolutely always retain the right to change my opinion. Okay. If El Salvador changes and gets better, I I will come back. I will do another interview and go, I'm so happy to bring people here. My fears were unjust. Like, I will change my opinion. I'm not set in, I'm not digging my heels in or anything like this. I want to see it
Yeah.
succeed.
No, that makes sense. If you were able to sit down with people that are kind of making these decisions, and do you feel like you could, like, hey, these are the things. Obviously, we've talked about the immigration and the tax thing, but would you just basically encourage them to replicate what other jurisdictions have done and kind of take the best from all these different things?
Definitely. I
And
mean,
how long do you think that would actually take to implement? And
okay, well, I am not a politician,
yeah,
so I don't know how long it takes to push these things through the court system or through the Senate or anything like this.
well, I mean, that's one of the unique things about El Salvador because Bukele has such huge popularity, won by such a huge margin, and his party basically controls
Dominates.
everything.
Sure.
They can make things happen quickly, which they receive a lot of criticism for, but I think it actually helps them really be able to push things through and to make these type of changes where in a place where you had to battle every little thing out,
Sure.
it would never, I mean, that's why a lot of these places never change.
No, 100%. I mean, I've been traveling extensively for 25 years straight. I visited over 110 countries. My podcast at Expat Money has been going for 8 years straight. I mean, I write about these things. I run a 7-figure, close to 8-figure business just consulting on these types of things. I am very confident I could come up with a 10-point plan of things that need to be changed. Now, I would specialize in the corporate structures and the immigration and a little bit of tax. Like, my background is not the safety.
Yeah.
It is not all these other things. I don't know anything about the port authorities or maritime law or anything like that. I have this very, very small niche, Mike, of what people are looking for when they move to another country. And I could definitely help with those types of things. But everything else, there's other people who are more qualified. But this, I'm very confident I could do.
So you're here with actually because a friend of mine, Patrick, that it sounds like you are very close friends with.
Yep.
And you guys are involved in a project together, and I don't know if it's just that one, but just curious to mention a little bit about what you guys are doing in Panama.
Yeah, Patrick Hebert, one of my closest friends. He's godfather to my kids. We're very, very close. We're doing a project together in Panama. It's a completely off-grid community. It's called Veritas, veritaspanama.com. You guys can find out more about it. It's 87 lots. There'll probably be 100, 110, 120 homes that go on there. Stunning
And that's because
views.
some people will put 2 homes.
Exactly.
On it,
Some people will put 2 or 3, or you want to have your mom close by, but you don't want her too close by. Like next door or something like that. But completely off-grid community.
And
solar,
completely focused on freedom.
yes, absolutely. Freedom-minded individuals, self-sustaining. We've got mature fruit trees on site, well water, solar panels, luxury living, like very, very gorgeous homes. Patrick's company does amazing architecture and design. They're a developer. It's mostly my clients who are buying in there. So this is, my piece of the puzzle is that I have a voice, and I spent a lot of time on the front end, tweaking things and, okay, what would people want? And the response has been fantastic. But we do other projects together in other countries, and I'm here in El Salvador looking at land here. We've been in other countries together looking at land and other projects that we could do together. But very bullish on this one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
No, I watched you guys did a very thorough 3.5 hour presentation on what the plans were, and it was exciting for me to hear these things being put into place, because I love Patrick, like, having lived down in this region for so long. He's not going into this, like, with this blind idealism of like, oh, it's going to be this
that was
happy
20 years ago.
utopia. Yeah. No, he's very realistic of like, hey, no, we got to have these certain regulations in place. We got to require people to do this, because otherwise they're, it's going to go off in this direction. And
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's going to be very successful. And so, how many of the lots have you guys sold?
Most of them. The 4-hour presentation did a lot, let's say.
Yeah, no, obviously, if I wasn't entrenched here in El Salvador,
All right, we'll have you over for steak dinner at our place next time. So,
but you guys have plans to do multiple of these?
Yeah, the idea is that we'll do in a few different countries. We would like to have, a Pacific one. We'd want a mountain one. We want a Caribbean one. And the nice thing is, and I'm sure you can agree with me, down here in Central and South America, the prices are considerably less. So you can sell off your primary residence in Canada or the US, maybe $1 million in equity. You don't coming down here and buying like one home for $1 million. You can buy 3 homes for $1 million. You can spend time in different parts of the world and have bases and enjoy. And when you're not using it, rent it out or give it to your friends and family or something like that to go on vacation. Get them out of the house, So there's a lot of cool things you can do with that. A lot of people want a bit more freedom, not just freedom from government, but freedom of movement, freedom to explore, and freedom to retire early and do the things that they wanted to do. I left Canada at 17 years old and started traveling internationally. I have been doing what I wanted to do right from the very beginning, but not everybody has done that. So now helping people to have that type of freedom is awesome, like super rewarding.
Brings up another question I have. I was just curious, what age demographic are most of your clients? Are these people that are looking to retire early and move somewhere else? Are they people who have gone the traditional route and they're in their mid-60s? And I'm sure they're all over the board.
Exactly. I have the whole gambit. I've got some young entrepreneurs who have hired me who understand the benefits of working with a professional and want to set things up right. 28, 30-year-olds. I have lots of people who have young kids. I have 3 kids of my own. I have an 8-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-month-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so brand new. We can get into the kids in a little bit too, because I know you're a father as well. And then I do have retirees. I have some clients who are in their 70s. I have some clients who are in their 80s. We're doing estate planning. We're doing, end of life type of things and how that's going to be passed on. We work with the lawyers on all of these, and I have the whole gambit. I think the connection is not so much the age; it's more of the philosophical. Like, I'm a very conservative-minded person. I'm very family first. Very freedom-oriented. I resonate very well with those types of people. If they have similar beliefs, then that's the connection.
Yeah.
Not, hey, Mikkel's 41 and I'm 60, so we can't talk or something. It's a different generation. So it's a bit different.
And do you find that most of the people that are looking for those type of services are more freedom-minded and have those type of sensibilities, or those are just the ones that you attract?
I think that I am really outspoken, and I try to, we affectionately call it shaking the tree.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to work with a lot of woke, commie, socialist people. So tell them to go. I don't
know
know how
right up
polite your
front.
show
Yeah,
is, but
yeah.
I think you get the point. So
Yeah.
I'm very upfront about
Yeah.
these types of things. Who I want to work with. It's my life as well, by the way.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time with my clients. Like, I am so dedicated to my clients. If I got to spend my life with them, I want to work with cool people that I actually get along with, and I want to spend my minutes with, my days with. So I'd rather save us all a lot of time on the front end and just kind of repel the people that that don't like me, or I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. So
Yeah. One thing that we forgot to mention at the Veritas communities, they can pay in Bitcoin, right?
100% can
Okay.
pay in Bitcoin. Call it top 10 cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin preferred.
Bitcoin only. Come
Bitcoin
on.
only. You heard it here. Bitcoin only.
Um, what are the other countries that you do recommend to your clients right now?
I specialize in low tax or zero tax countries.
Okay.
I'm located in Panama, so I do a lot in there. We do a bunch in Uruguay. Uruguay has a very favorable tax system.
Really?
Yeah, it's a 10-year tax holiday. It's basically the year you arrive plus 10 years, no tax in Uruguay.
Really?
Yeah.
But Uruguay is kind of more of a socialist.
It actually has a right-leaning government right now, and even when they were more socialist, they were like more centralist.
Okay.
But
I
it's
love Uruguay. It's a beautiful country.
so gorgeous. I love
Amazing
their tourist
beaches.
videos. It's like, you're like, come to Uruguay. We're boring. It's
Yeah.
like that's like their thing. It's like, if you like to barbecue and you want to be
the
outside,
food and the wine and the beaches, they're like all amazing.
yeah, exactly. So stunning, stunning, stunning there, and very safe. Very.
But I wouldn't have thought it as a low tax place.
It is actually.
Okay.
I mean, they actually have a terrible VAT, like a consumption tax, but their income tax is very good there. If at least for the 11 years.
Yeah.
And then they've got a lot of tax schemes in there. So even past that, there are things in place to legally reduce your taxes.
Okay.
So we do stuff in Uruguay. We do in Paraguay, which is territorial tax system. Paraguay is very not developed at all, like zero infrastructure. So we will see how that
totally
goes.
landlocked, right?
Completely landlocked, hot as all hell in the summertime.
Yeah.
Not beautiful beaches like you have here in El Salvador, but from a tax standpoint, and if you want to start society from scratch, go to Paraguay.
Okay.
Yeah. Panama, obviously, as I said, where I live, Panama is the number one place that we're bringing people to. Safe, stable, good medical facilities, well connected. Tucumán Airport, brand new terminal, amazing. Caribbean and the Pacific, mountains, zero tax if done correctly. Just so many fantastic things, like Michelin star restaurants. We go out to the nicest restaurants all the time. I mean, the traffic is crazy there because it's super busy, but they're putting in new highways, new bridges, new monorail, like new train lines, subways. Like, it is really developing very fast. And remember, when I first came to Central America, 2003, 2004, I spent 18 months hitchhiking and backpacking through Central and South America. And I came to Panama and Belize and Costa Rica and all these countries. And it's like, Belize is like flat. Costa Rica's gone up a little bit. And Panama's like hockey stick.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely transformed over the last 2 decades.
Just when you fly, I mean, I've never actually spent time in the country, but I've been through the airport a dozen times. And when you're flying in, just looking at it, you're like, every time you fly in, there's more skyscrapers there and more.
Yeah, we have 2 man-made islands, the same company who did the Palms in Dubai.
Really? I didn't realize
by
that.
a Dutch company, 2 man-made islands. Like, they're amazing.
So the complaint I hear from a lot of expats about Panama is that the customer service sucks there, and that
Welcome to Latin America.
But I feel like the customer service in El Salvador and is really good. Like, talking about restaurants, things like that, where
amazing.
But I've heard that complaint in Panama. Is that legit complaint, or
it depends where you're eating? Like, we go to very nice restaurants, and they have some really fantastically trained people. But if you we bang our heads against the wall sometimes, the things that they do, and they're completely oblivious to. Like, we were joking, Pat and I, over this last couple of days, like, they'll be polishing the cutlery, and instead of like gently putting it down, they'll be throwing it in the bin, and you're trying to have a conversation like one table over, and it's just bang, bang, bang the whole time. And you're like, oh my God, like, please stop that. But if you're looking for Canadian or US service, you could get frustrated down here. But like, U.S. service, like in restaurants, is amazing. Like in most cases, is world class, better than in a lot of places I've been in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, way better than
Yeah.
where I lived in I lived in Abu Dhabi for almost a decade. Um, Beats Abu Dhabi hands down, like without a question. Like the service industry in North America is very phenomenal.
Yeah. So most of those places that you've recommended have all been in Latin America. Is that pretty much where you specialize, or?
Yeah, I mean, these days it's okay. As I said, I specialize in low tax or zero tax countries. So that means Latin America, Caribbean. We do a little bit in Europe, not very, like almost nothing in Asia. But you also have to understand that what I'm trying to do is help people to actually make a change in their life. Okay. So a lot of North Americans, because once again, the majority of my people are North Americans. So you have to understand that, are accustomed to Latino culture. Okay, they know the music, they know
Yeah.
the food, they had friends, they went to college, they took Spanish in high school, things like that. They might be business owners, so going, staying within an hour or two time zone, that's really good.
Yeah.
Going north south makes a lot of sense. Am I going to get them on an airplane and move them to Thailand or Malaysia? No, they're not going to do that. Am I going to move my dentist to Thailand? That's not going to happen. Not that I don't love Thailand. Great place. Like I traveled to almost every single country in Asia. I love spending time there. My wife is Asian. My wife is from mainland China. Um, but is that where people want to move to? No, not the people that I serve.
Yeah.
My people are more interested in Latin America, which means that's where I'm putting more of my effort into.
Well, that makes sense, especially the time zone thing. I think that's something that people don't really think about up front, but once they've moved somewhere else and they're trying to run a business or even just trying to have a social life with the.
Well, I'll give you a good example. So I've been in Panama for 5 years, okay? But I've been running my company for a decade. And as I said earlier, I have an 8-year-old little girl. And it was fine when I was, starting work at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night and working till 3 o'clock in the morning. But then I had a kid. And my daughter wants to get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And, if daddy needs to sleep until 1:30 in the afternoon because he's been up working all night,
Yeah.
that's not fair to her, right? And I don't want to be an absentee father. I want to be there for my kids. I homeschool my kids. I work from home. I became a father because I wanted to be a father. So telling her to be quiet is not reasonable. So I was extremely blessed to be able to move to a place that was still tax-free, that ticked all the boxes that I needed to live my life in what I believe is an honest and ethical manner. And it was on a, Eastern Standard Time or Central Time. That was so attractive to me,
So
Mike.
is there 2 time zones in Panama?
No, in Panama, there's one time zone,
Okay.
but in the United States, there is daylight savings time.
Yeah. Okay.
So for
it
6 months
depends.
there,
Yeah. Same in El
you
Salvador does.
understand.
Yeah. Which screws me up sometimes because I forget about it. And so I have something scheduled with somebody in the US.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, how come you didn't show up for our meeting? You're like, no, it's not for 30 minutes. And they're like, no, it was 30 minutes ago.
Sure.
I was like, oh, crap, the time changed again.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I hope that we'll be able to sit back here in another year or two and you be talking about how you're recommending El Salvador to your
Love
clients.
nothing more, Mike. I think it would be absolutely.
Well, and I love that
excellent.
you're here exploring it and checking it out. It definitely seems, obviously you're here for a reason, and it's piqued your interest. And based on your things you've written, you're definitely following what's happening here and the changes that Bukele's making. So
yeah, I spend my own money to come down here. It's not being subsidized. No one's paying me to come down here. I want to take a look around, schedule all the meetings, ask a lot of questions, all on my dime, just so I can have a better understanding of it. Because I think that's the only way you can really do this. Yes, I read and research and listen to other people, but nothing beats seeing something with your own eyes.
Yeah, no, you can't make an assessment without getting your feet on the ground and actually talking to people and looking at things.
Yeah, no, I'm not an armchair travel. I do this for a living. Like when I get back from this trip, 4 days later, I'm going to Northern Cyprus to look at a project there. I'm speaking on stage in Montenegro at a conference. Then I go through the Balkans for a couple of weeks I got me, my wife, my mom, 3 kids, and the Colombian nanny with us. and take them through Serbia and Moldova and North Macedonia and all these places. Then I have to pop over to Spain and Andorra for an event, and then back over to the Balkans. So I'm on the road for the next 6 weeks or 7 weeks or something like that, and doing the same thing in all of these countries, just trying to understand.
So I'd love for you to share with listeners just what services you guys offer if people are thinking about making a change. And obviously I'm partial to El Salvador, but if they want to explore these other opportunities and engage your services, I'm just curious. I don't even know how that works. Is there a set fee that you pay? Does it depend on the services they're required? How do they engage you? How do they find you?
Sure. So we have 3 levels. We've got a do-it-yourself type of, okay, actually, I guess we have 4 levels. We've got a free podcast, webinars, articles. We have a private Facebook group at expatmoneyforum.com with 22,000 people in there. Any of that stuff for free. We put out 90% of the information at expatmoney.com completely for free. But let's say that you want a bit more than that. You want, we've got analysts and researchers and, policy specialists and lawyers and things like that. We produce a massive amount of content. If you're a DIY type of person and you want access to the best resources and a network of people that, lawyers, accountants, property developers, precious metal depositories, banks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you're a DIY type of person, it's $2,000 a year. We have something called the Hub membership. You'll be able to find it on the website. Then the next level is a group coaching program that we do. So it's 1-on-10 or 1-on-15, taking you through the whole program. Okay, we
Is
deal
this
with the
people
banking.
that are just like, are they all moving to the same place?
No, it's all custom built,
Okay.
whatever they need. We support them through the whole thing. So it's DIY, a group setting, and then we do private consulting. The private consulting was actually where I started. It was always private consulting, and now I've gone back and backfilled things for different type of price points. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an
And is the
accountant.
private consulting depending on, does it vary, or is there a set price for that?
No, it's set price. Right now, my prices are $30,000 a year. I never go back to the well, though. I make sure things get done, or even if it took 14 months or 16 months or something like that, I don't care. And then we've got an alumni program, so you still get access to all the research and these types of things. But
So
we
for
support you all.
$30,000, it's kind of a white glove, like helping them relocate, make sure their tax
Exactly, you got it. Exactly.
situation's covered and all of that.
Exactly.
Which sounds like a lot of money, but for what it can cost you to do it the wrong way, that's a drop in the bucket.
Exactly. And we end up developing like really strong relationships with our clients. And I have clients from 6-7 years ago who I still talk to on a maybe quarterly basis. I had dinner 3 nights ago with a client who hired me 3 years ago, and I'm still helping him with things. Really strong relationships. I love my clients to death. I bend over backwards for them. No one fights for their clients like I do. So, I really like the work a lot. It's really cool.
Awesome. So expatmoney.com?
Expatmoney.com.
Okay. Are you on Twitter?
I am. I think it's
or X or whatever you want to call it now?
Whatever it's called now. Yeah, you'll be able to find me there. I'm sure if you search Expat Money,
Okay.
you'll be able to find me. But the main place is come on the newsletter. We've got a very substantial newsletter, tons of free content on there. That and the podcast, wherever you guys are listening to the podcast today, check out Expat Money Show, and that'll sort you out.
No, I'm excited to watch you continue to process what's happening here, and this was insightful for me to hear the issues that you found, as far as the corporate structure and even the immigration things, and which the immigration thing is not necessarily news to me because I've been through that, but just to hear that it's not that way in a lot of other places, and it could easily be fixed. I think hopefully we'll see some of these shifts happening.
For sure, definitely fixable. Definitely fixable.
All right. Next year we'll get you back on again, and we'll get an update.
Nice one. Thanks very much for your time, Mike. I appreciate it.